So any comments from last time? We went through chapter 3, 4, and 6, movement flows, and just letting the joints free and then keeping the spatial awareness so we've got more tone. Did anyone play with that? Digging drains?
I played a little. I really found the bouncing at the end of it that we did very satisfying. So I sort of enjoyed working towards that type of bouncing, which was lovely.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Hannes.
Yeah, as I remember doing it. So we were very much in movement, and something was much easier to be very active with the directions. And so lots of self-organizing. And it reminds me what I read in your book, that Delsarte, he wrote about the gesture, like the directions together give a gesture. And the more is involved, the more dimensions of directions is involved. So the less you have to do and the more power it's getting. Like it's multiplying something. And this is very similar to the experience of being more free and more allowing. So, because I think we come from, we do something wrong in Alexander technique and we have to learn it better. And we're really stuck into it. And it fits also very much into the last Miss Goldie Club, what you did there. Because I think it's a similar thing. That we're still concentrating too much on the direction, and we go too much concentrate into it. And maybe we need to do it because we lost it. But the more and more we integrate it really into movement, and we allow ourselves to play and to be free and finding. And I mean, this is all the embodiment work, is to find back the playfulness and being as a child, which happens in me more and more in joy of allowing myself to feel the need for movement and breathing and all this. And it gets into it, and so it gets getting more easy to give the directions in it.
Nice.
Because they do it from inside. And very subtle. So you have it inside. You think about it, and then it's there, and it stays there, and you just give a small thought, and it's integrating and finding the tone. This is my impression, yeah.
Found from the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you. Do you want to say anything, Kazuyuki? Yeah.
From backgrounds to and shift weight to the foreleg, especially paying attention to the heels. I love this so much. I do it every day, and some exercise I shared with my pupils. Some of my pupils. Eyes reading and get monkey and rotate.
Yes.
Yeah. That's very easy to practice for me and for my some of my pupils. That's very enjoyable. Thank you.
Yes, it's a nice way of linking up the body, isn't it? Linking the eyes and the movement again. Really good. Okay, well, continuing the theme that we'll actually just look at chapter 7 today. And I'll go through, we'll start with some body mapping that I actually got from Rachel's talk at the ATI conference on Monday. Were you there in that one, Kazuyuki, with the, yes, so you'll recognize that. And then we'll do the new reverse iliac pulls, which again, Kazuyuki and Hannes will know from the Goldie Club, but Alison won't yet. So, so we'll do those, and then we'll take them into the, arm pulls and lunges and the chapter 7 stuff and see where it takes us, and do a bit more strength work with it, perhaps. Yeah. Anyone got weak wrists? Who feels their wrists are weak? You don't have a problem with wrist. Are your wrists strong, or are they a delicate zone? Kazuyuki.
It's okay for me.
Okay for you, yeah, because it's quite
Okay for
often
me.
an area for people. Yeah, Hannes, yours are all right. If you go on all fours a lot, your wrists are okay. Yeah, okay. Maybe we'll save that one. Okay, so let's start with some warm up. So let's just start by finding a place where we can be seen, and just starting with those heels under hips, and bringing the knees like we did last time, just letting them come back up without tensing. I'm talking a bit more quietly today because of this tooth. Can you all hear me all right? Yeah. You can leave your microphones on, and then if you need to say anything, actually you can just do that. So just being aware of the heels, and maybe the ankles, just close the ankle again, just coming back up over the medial ankle, so that we're just letting the lower leg bones, the whole body, in fact, rotate on the talus bone. A sense of floating on the talus bone, the ankle bone. That's it. And then coming to standing and seeing whether the ankles just let them alone more. And then the head neck joints, just letting that raindrop roll and letting it rotate around the atlanto-occipital, around the center of gravity point. Just letting the eyes bring it up again. And again, just letting the raindrop roll around the center of gravity. Pivot is the atlanto-occipital, and it rotates around the center of gravity. A very small movement that continues to float to take the head up. And then just letting the eyes go down and up, inviting that movement to carry on. And the head, even if as we come up, the head continues to rotate forwards and up as it goes up. And then just let the eyes go around to the side, just being aware I let my lower back teeth drop away from my upper back teeth, and my upper back teeth lift up and off my forward, my upper back teeth. My upper back teeth lift up and off my lower back teeth. And I let my lower back teeth drop down from my upper back teeth. My upper back teeth lift up and off my lower back teeth. Let my lower back teeth drop down from my upper back teeth. My upper back teeth lift up and off my lower back teeth. And we do that as we let the head rotate. Multitask here. It's interesting doing that because you can't over focus on the jaw, you just have to let it happen. And again, letting the eyes go out to the horizon or up the wall, whichever is out of the window, and then back down. And as it comes down, letting it just come into a little monkey and then up again. And just being aware of the body breathing as you do this, following the eyes, the body is moving. If it's doing a little spiral, let yourself find your own way into movement at this point. You can go a bit lower or higher, whichever. Following the eyes and letting the body follow. Spiraling the head, spiraling the shoulders, spiraling the hips, if that feels right. Little body. And just being aware of the breath. So looking out, being aware of the space between you and the room and the fact that the body is breathing. Just letting the out breath go long. And then the in-breath just happens. And the out-breath is long and the in-breath just happens. And just letting it happen right from the pelvic floor. Maybe just moving the knees ever so slightly. Just to encourage that breath right down to the pelvic floor. We're not forcing anything. Just by letting the knees soften a little. You can sometimes open up the breath right to the bottom. Okay. So let's do a bit of body mapping of the hips. Discovering mobility in the pelvis. This workshop was, as I say, Kazuyuki and I were both at Rachel Prabhakar, if that's how you pronounce it, workshop on Monday, and she was basing it on the work of Eric Franklin. A lot of his work on the, turns out on YouTube. And it seems to be all to do with the pelvic floor and the mobility within the pelvic floor. And she started off by saying that we tend to think of the pelvic bowl as a bowl, like a salad bowl, a fixed thing. But actually, let's explore whether it really is fixed, or whether there's movement in it. So just put your legs apart and clasp under your bum and find your sitting bones. Just finding your sitting bones. That's it. So we're going to wiggle around till we find them. And then bend your knees and see if you can notice what the sitting bones do. And come up again and notice what they do. Do they stay in the same position relative to each other? Or in one direction, do they widen, and in the other direction, do they narrow? Or do they go forwards and back? Or do they go up and down? Or do they go diagonally? What do your sitting bones do? As you bend your knees, and as you come up again. Kazuyuki, you know the answer, so see if the others can have anything.
Well, I know the answer because I'm familiar with Franklin's work.
Right, okay. Alice, you know. Yes,
I would say if I bend my knees, the sitting bones go apart.
absolutely spot on. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and then when you come back again, they narrow in again. Yeah. So now let's put the feet facing forwards and just experience the same there. Again, grab your sitting bones. So that's it. And the point of holding them here is, again, to get much more of an embodied sense of them. A real bit of body mapping of where they are and what they're doing, so that, because I've become aware that, you know, I had a very static model of the skeleton. And if you look at Ted Diamond's pictures, for instance, I mean, there's one, there's several actually, where he does literally picture the skeleton as carpentry. I mean, there's one of his pictures, you know, where he's actually picturing the joints as blocks of wood, and with totally mechanical hinges. And that's rather how biomechanics views the body, and it's not true. That's page 42, Kazuki, in Body in Motion. Is that the one you've got? Yes, so the body isn't carpentry. It isn't, you know, it doesn't just bend and flex like a hinge in a door. The muscles are doing all sorts, the bones are doing all sorts of other things. So there's the sitting bones going forwards and back and widening out and in. So what then do the iliac spines do? And if you put the heels of your hands on your iliac spines and then put your hands across and do the same bend, and notice, does the distance between your hands get less or more as you bend? Do the fingers overlap more as you bend, or do they widen apart as you bend? We know that the sitting bones are widening out as you bend and coming back in again as you come up, but what are the iliac spines doing? Again, Hannes, do you get a sense of this one? Yes, exactly. This time they're going the other way, aren't they? The sitting bones are going out and the iliac spines are coming in. So the pelvis, there's two halves of the pelvis seem to be doing that, which is amazing in itself. And apparently it's doing more than that. It's doing a spiral, which I don't, do you know more about that, Alison, about the spiral that they do?
I have his book about the pelvis, and I've always had a trouble finding that in my own body. I know it's there intellectually, but I have a real problem finding that.
Finding the
for myself.
spiral. Yes. Could you feel you could feel the iliac one though?
Yes.
Yes, and you can feel the sitting bones.
Yes.
It's the spiral that's the tricky one.
That's it.
Yes, I'm sure. So let's just pick up on the knees. Again, if you bend, what does the thigh bone do as you bend, and what does the thigh bone do as you straighten? Any offers, Hannes?
What does it mean? Which
Well,
way?
is the leg bone, is it?
Yeah, the leg bone, yeah.
Which way is it? Is it rotating or is it swinging? What would you say it's doing as we go down and up?
If I bend my knees, it's turning inwards.
Outwards, actually.
Outwards.
Yes, it's actually outwards. As we bend the knees go forwards and away, the thigh bone rotates out.
Yeah.
And as we come up again, it comes back in.
Yeah.
So Malcolm Bork made this point in his video about knees forwards and away, that, you know, Alexander said the knees go forwards and away when it's right half the time when we're bending, and the other half of the time it isn't. So when we're standing, this leg actually locks, the thigh bone rotates that way and sort of locks solid so that the other leg can swing and go out. But we won't get into that today. But it's just being aware that all this area is much more mobile than we gave it credit for. That it's doing these shifts. If we just sort of do an up and down gently, become aware that the sitting bones go in, the thighs rotate out, the sitting bones come out, the thighs rotate out, but this actually comes in. And then as we come up again, the sitting bones come back together and the thighs come in, but that actually opens out. So there's a whole little movement going on there, and we won't get into what the sacrum and the lumbar spine is happening, because this is enough, I think, for today. So let's just do some squats together as far as you're comfortable going. They don't have to be fancy squats. Just squat thinking about your head leading to start. Let's do the old classic neck free, head forward and up, back lengthen and widen, and knees go forward to weight, and go into a squat thinking about your head. And then do exactly the same thing, but this time, let's just let Alison catch up. That's right. Head leading. And then this time, same thing, but we're going to be aware of the sitting bones widening apart and the knees going forwards and away, but the sitting bones widening apart as you squat. And then coming back together again as you come up. And then reverse it again, do the head one. Head leading. Thinking about the head as you go down and up. And then thinking about the sitting bones as you go down and up and what they're doing. Anyone have a comment on which is easier?
I'm much more stable when I think about my sitting bones.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it's much easier to extend the legs up again because one's more in touch with the hamstrings, I think. And yes, you agree with that one. What about you, Hannes?
Yeah, same. It's like it's opening and there's more place for move.
Yes. Yes.
More, yeah. Space for move.
Space, more space to move.
Yes.
Yes. So embodying the sitting bones is actually rather amazing. And, you know, Philip Shepherd gets one going from this zone, but this makes it more specific, more physical, more, you can sort of literally get a hold of it. Stability and mobility. I mean, I wrote in the book that in the walking chapter, we discussed the fact, and the walking material we've done, we discussed the fact that mobility comes out of stability. But the point Rachel makes is that before you can have stability, you have to have the mobility within the joints so that the body can actually find the stability through it, because it's like the body is actually rotating all the bones all the time in order to find the stability. So we need the mobility in the joints to find stability, from which the rest of the system can then be mobile. Does that make sense? So, I mean, in a sense, it's a bit like Alexander's original idea. You simply have to free the joints up. You have to free the shoulders and free the neck and somehow. But this is taking it to a finer point as well. We need mobility not just between the bones, but within the bones. That makes sense. It's more detailed freedom, not just that, but the rotations that then happen within it. That's just a thought to play with. And then I thought about really sort of overdoing letting those widen out and those come together and those rotate out. And if you then overdo it a bit, it sort of starts to get a bit floppy again. So we really do only need to allow these movements to happen. I think we don't need to overemphasize them. So, because what we're working with a lot is the fact that we want things to be taught. We don't want things to be floppy. We want them to be able to move, but we want them taught. So we'll come back to that, of course, in a minute. Now, that was one of mine. Let's come now to the reverse iliac pulls that Alison hasn't encountered yet. So the others have heard, Alison, that I had several pupils who could not do the iliac pulls. They just couldn't do it. And I've had other pupils who've actually gone into significant back pain doing them. And I've been a bit puzzled and aware that they sort of, they can create tensions.
Yeah.
So if we think the standard pull, just have another go at it. Just think that standard pull. And what does it do? It flattens the belly, but what does it do to the breathing? Does it leave the breathing completely free? Or does it leave the breathing a bit restricted?
It can leave the breathing restricted. Yeah.
Yes, it can, can't it? And one can then sort of have to really work to get the breath through to the legs. So then somebody started saying, well, of course, when you have diastasis rectus, you have, you know, where they're in pregnancy, where the rectus abdominis split pull apart, they actually think the pull that way. So I tried it with these pupils and it was dramatic. So just thinking the pulls around in the other direction. So it's exactly the same move, but we're just doing it in the other direction. And what then happens? Alison, do you have any feedback as to what happens when we pull that way?
Yes, I actually played with this because I have a student who, when she was doing the pulls, it aggravated her sciatica.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sensed that she needed to think further back into the pelvic bowl and come to open out the back. And we found that we still got this widening and engaging of the transversus abdominis.
Yes, but yet it's engaged, but yet it's soft, isn't it?
Yes.
Whereas this one hardens it, but this way,
Yeah.
still engage it, but it's softer.
Yeah.
So my formulation of this one, because we want, you know, instead of saying I pull the iliac spines back and wide, I thought, well, why don't we work from the PSIS? So
Yeah.
I've talked about, I don't know if we've talked about finding a PSIS. I probably have actually, haven't we? In the advanced work. That's fun wiggle. So yes, you've got the PIS, which is again, it's at the back of the iliac crest.
Yeah.
And of course, the transversus attaches to both ends, to the front iliac crest and the back. So if we pull the back iliac crest, posterior iliac crest, posterior iliac spine round to the front iliac spine. So that's the suggestion. So how do you like that as a pull suggestion? Is that something you can think that's definite? I pull the iliac, the posterior iliac spine down to the anterior iliac spine.
My back hip wide and got more stability.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
And the depth, more depth feel.
More hips.
I can feel.
You can actually feel the hips better. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the deep hip rotators stay out of the way. They're not tend to be pulled back. I'm pulling this back too much. I can really get the deep hip rotators starting to try and tighten.
Yes, I see what you mean there. And this way it doesn't happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. So what does it do to the breathing in the back?
I can breathe deeply.
Yes. Do you get that, Alison?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But it really opens out the breath into the buttocks even. And as you say, then it leaves the deep rotators engaged but not tight.
I have the feeling that the opening of the backside, so pulling the posterior iliac spines is widening the back, and the widening of the back is like sucking everything back.
Yeah.
So there is a movement backwards from opening. So, and it might be otherwise I'm very narrow and I'm pushing forward. And I take this out and open it out, so my balance comes far more back, which is also what Jando wants.
Well, isn't it? Exactly. So it's doing the same thing. I mean, given that most people stand like that,
Yes.
as you say, it widens it back, but in a much more organic way. So it brings you over your head. So I think it's doing exactly the same thing that Jando wants,
Yeah.
but it's doing it in a way, to me, that's more organic and more fluid.
Yes. It can very cause stiffness. I think what Jando wants, because he's very specific and he's very much into certain points, and it makes us very narrow, or it's a danger to do it.
Yes, yes, it's a bit more located, isn't it?
Yeah.
This gives more general widening. Just for the experiment, try thinking the previous ones, iliac spines back, and go for a walk, thinking iliac spines back, and see what you notice about how that is. And then think iliac spines from the back forwards, and go for another walk. And what's the difference?
More fluid,
More
more
free,
smooth.
more smooth, yes. Yes.
I recognize when I pull my iliac spines back, I tend to hold myself back, which makes my legs throwing forward and landing on the heel.
Yes.
And the other way, it's much more integrated
Yes.
and more mobility in the legs.
Yes. Yes, I completely agree. And what about spatial awareness of moving into the world? Which is it easier? What's the difference?
Easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the first way almost holds you back. It not just holds your foot back, it holds you back, from the world. I was finding when I first did Jando's pulls, it was pulling me back inside myself again.
Yeah.
And but this way, you go into the world with your back.
It's the same like seeing from the back of the head through the space of the skull and out
Yeah.
here.
Yes. So
For me, it's much easier to keep that pull, even if I take a big step out. When I was doing this, I took the big step out and I lost my
Yeah.
easier.
Yes. So I think we're getting closer to what nature intended here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I suggest that just pulling the iliac spines back, we don't know exactly how to do it, and so we do an effort with the rectus abdominis and some muscles from the legs to do it. This is causing the stiffness, and so if we have these points, it's the beginning and the end of the transversals, so it's much clearer that we are activating this muscle.
Yes. And I think too, it actually goes up into the whole of the transversus, it goes into the obliques, it even goes into the serratus. And so the whole thing then opens in one go.
Yeah.
And it's much more linking up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great discovery. Okay, and as if that wasn't enough, we're now going to reverse the hamstring pull as well. Did we do this the other day? Kazuyuki and Hannes, did we do this one in the Goldie one as well? We
I
did.
think so. Yes.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, Alison won't know this one. So again, I was working with another pupil and we were working on all 7 directions. And when we put sitting bones to back of knees, we just felt tethered down. And it was difficult to go up. And so it made me think, hang on, do we need to reverse this one as well? So because you then have to think up the back of the legs, which was my addition, because Jando hadn't added that, because I just felt tethered down by these. And again, they're difficult to keep going while you move because they're tethering you down. So try thinking them the other direction, thinking the backs of the knees to the sitting bones and what happens. Any offers? Alison, what are you aware of?
Well, I'm getting a sense of, it's like the upward line that we think, that as I find that, I'm coming up. What I'm curious about is that my pelvis is much more stable these days. If I was really collapsed and thinking up, I don't think it would bring my pelvis, change the angle of my pelvis.
Right, I mean, one does that. The back of backs of knees to hamstrings, it works.
Right.
I haven't tried doing it from that one. Hamstring, backs of knees to hamstrings. What happens? Yeah, it's sort of. I mean, there is an upline, but it's not as obvious, is it? But did that one help anyway on that? I'm not sure that one helped that way. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, did the other one work on that one? Suppose it did. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so we've got an option.
Yes. Yeah. I like it, and I like the way that it connects up. When I'm thinking up, I mean, I really feel that it's helping me connect up, not only through the hamstrings, but through the adductors and even into the psoas. I get that sense of it coming all the way up.
Yes. It can make it. And then to me again, I think it's what about keeping it going when we move?
Yeah.
I think it's easier to keep going when we move. Okay, so let's play with this sitting on a stool. So you sit on your hands and find your sitting bones. Hello. And again, notice what happens when you go backwards and forwards to your sitting bones. And you feel in which direction they widen and in which direction they come in. And Hannes, can you pick this one up? Which way do they widen? As you come forwards or as you go back?
As I go forward, they go apart.
They go, yeah, absolutely, don't they just? And also the muscles, the thighs spiral out and the whole lot comes back together as we go back. So here's an interesting one, given that there's muscles doing that somewhere in the system, and how about if we think to gently oppose them in order to invite them to do it more eccentrically. So as we come back, so if we're forwards, and as we come back, just doesn't matter about the hands at this point, think about inviting your sit bones not to rush together, but to stay a bit more apart. And you're not going to stop the movement, but you're just inviting it to be a little bit more controlled in what it does. And then even as you come forwards, invite them not to rush apart either. And what changes?
I'm very aware of tone in the pelvic floor as I'm doing that.
Yeah. And now add in that backs of knees to hamstrings, foot, backs of knees to sitting bones. Add in the pubococcygeals. Just adding more tone to the system.
So even just with working with the sitting bones, it's stabilizing and I feel it up the torso and down the legs.
Yes.
So it's like connecting, like they want, like a lever they want to go. And if I don't allow it, the force goes from down to up.
Beautiful. And now let's add that one as well. So that although the iliac spines are going wide as we come back and narrow, again, we're just using this to invite that movement to be a little bit more restrained. So they're going narrow as we come in, don't let them narrow. Don't let it narrow then, or invite it not to narrow as we come forward. Invite it not to come so far apart even, because you're bringing that round as you come back. Invite it to stay wide as we come forwards. Invite it not to narrow as we come back.
For more stable and freer.
Yeah, the middle is much more stable. Yeah.
And at the same time, freer.
Clear. Yes. Nice.
But so the knees or the thighs, if I go forward, they want to go apart.
Yes.
And they can collapse. And this is what happens usually if I lean forward,
Yes.
I put my knees out. And if I don't allow this, it's also stabilizing the iliac, the sitting bones.
Lovely. Yeah. Nice. So yes, we're stabilizing the legs again from doing a bigger movement than they need to do.
Yeah.
And this is Bernstein's degrees of freedom, if you remember that one. Does everybody know about Bernstein's degrees of freedom? No? Oh, okay. So Bernstein said, how on earth does the nervous system control the musculoskeletal system, given that there are 208 bones and 800 muscles, all going in different directions? How the hell does it control it all? It's a very good question. And the answer he realized is that each joint only moves in certain directions. So the elbow actually only moves within a certain number of degrees of freedom. The elbow can't shoot out in all sorts of different directions. And that because the joints are limited in what they can do, that means the nervous system can control it. And we know that if we stand and let that happen, again, you've got more degrees of freedom than you need. So again, what I picture is that the more stable the joints are, the more we restrict the degrees of freedom, paradoxically, the better movement, the more precise movement we get. And actually out of that comes more mobility. So it's not what you expect. You'd expect to be increasing the degrees of freedom, but you're not. You're actually restricting it. And that allows the background tone of the body to be much more precise, which then allows the muscle that's actually doing the action to be more precise. So instead of using 100 muscles to do something, you can just go pachoo with just a few muscles, which then can be very clear and very precise. So restricting by stopping the wobble, we actually get a more taut movement, and then we get much more precision. Yeah.
But isn't it connecting more parts into it? As I have a huge amount of freedom in the joint, I lose the rest. And so reducing or stabilize the joint, the energy goes more all along.
Yes. Yeah, that's very interesting thought, because as you say, if something wobbles, the energy is just dissipated at that point.
Yeah, it's like a hole in
Yes, yes,
and all the water goes out there and it's lost.
yes, yes. Whereas it's all got to be contained, hasn't it? And then,
Yes,
and
and
then,
it flows to the other parts.
yeah, yeah. And Alison has been using this to great effect, digging her French drain. If anyone else saw that on Facebook, you've been getting a much more precise movement by using this, which would be much more efficient. And you've got your drain dug and you weren't sore, which, fantastic. So yes, the more we can use this when we use tools, again, the better. Yeah. Okay, so let's take all this into our squat again and see what then happens. So we've got the sitting bones are going to go apart, the knees are going to rotate out on the way down, and then on the way back they're going to come in, going the other direction. And now we're going to add in the iliac spines as well, coming from the back to the front, and also the fact that your backs of the knees are pulled up towards the sitting bones. So take your time to think about that. So I pull the posterior iliac spines back and round to the front iliac spines. I pull the pubococcygeals forwards, and I pull the backs of the knees up to the sitting bones, and then off you go into your squat, being aware of your sitting bones, not moving too much apart on the way down and not moving too much together on the way up. And here's the squat. Keeping those iliac spines pulling forwards, keeping the sitting bone, the backs of the knees pulling up towards the sitting bones, keeping those pulls going. And how's your squat? You can do a few even. Anyone like to comment?
Sitting bone is kept vertical, more vertical.
Sit
So
bones more vertical, yeah. So
I
that will use
can feel the movement. I can trace the movement all the time.
Yes. Yeah, beautiful movement. How's that, Hannes?
Yeah, it feels like very easy. So I have, I think it's a problem of my ankles not being flexible, opening. So I lose my balance back, but the movement as far as I can go easily feels very easy.
Lovely.
Very
So very stable and not a big deal to do.
Yes. Right, it just happens. This really makes a difference, doesn't it? This,
Yeah.
it just it brings you round into the movement again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the sitting bones then somehow power it. Nice. So let's
But so how to work on the ankles for the squat?
right, ankles to let's I'll give you a little ankle. I've got a pupil at the moment actually who, interesting you asked this, his right foot stopped bending altogether. And he nearly broke his Achilles tendon as a result. And fortunately, it just strained rather than tore, but he came hot foot, back foot essence. And so we've been working a lot getting the flexibility in the big toe joint, which I've always been aware never, I mean, didn't ever go more than there for him. But at the moment, when he came back on this time, it didn't do anything at all. And we've now got it back to about there. But one of the things but the real issue, I think, is the tension at the front of the ankle. I think that's, and the fact that he curls his toes. That was the other big one. So we've been working a lot on lengthening the toes. Do you curl your toes at all, Hannes?
As I do it,
As you do anything, do you tend to, do your toes pull in or do they stretch out? Anyone else like to notice that, whether you tend as you move to pull the toes in or whether you let them lengthen? Because letting the toes lengthen is a big part of ankles.
I think it's fine. They are doing fine.
Okay, so here's what about you, Alison? Are you a toe curler?
It's really interesting that you said that, because I've always thought my toes lengthened, but as I was walking, I was remembering those Dr. Scholl exercise sandals when I was a teenager, and I'm realizing that as my foot comes up, it's as if I'm grabbing a sandal onto them. Yeah.
Yes. So as you're walking, really think about letting your toes lengthen out. Lengthening as they go down, lengthening as they come up, just checking that at every moment your toes are lengthening. And when you wear a shoe, let the shoe look after itself.
Yeah.
Don't always wear a shoe that's well fitting. So that
Right, I do these days.
Yes, exactly. I mean, flip-flops are awful because every step you take, you have to grip your toes to keep the shoe on your foot.
Yeah.
And it's a very bad practice. So toe lengthening is part of it. And then here's a game for you, Hannes, which is that. Try that one. So you're starting on 2 straight feet, 1 foot back, the other foot forwards. And then you bend the back leg. Now, you also want to hip lift it so that you sit down into the air and the torso actually comes up, because again, this pupil, he was sort of doing that and that. So we want to keep the hips absolutely square and face the front, and you can actually feel the hip come up. As the hip drops down, the side of the body comes up. And the front of the ankle bends quite strongly. It's quite a strong movement. How's that, Hannes?
So the front of the ankle feels like being stretched.
Yes.
And I feel it also in the back. So there is something here on the inside, which is stretched.
Yes. Good.
Like,
and of course, the front foot is lengthening away with the toes lengthening away. Everything on the front foot is lengthening forwards. But the back foot is actually, the ankle is getting a workout. And the first week I got this pupil doing this, he made some very dramatic yells and noises and groans. And now he's done it every day since for a fortnight, and now there's no noise. So something's really loosened off.
yeah.
So that's something to play with. Keep the torso as upright as possible, because the minute you lean forwards, you've actually taken the pressure off the ankle. The more upright you stay, the more the ankle has to do the work. It's quite a tough one. You really are sitting back. You're sitting back in the air over the ankle. That's it. Katie, you keep, again, watch you don't lean back. It's that you really do get that vertical. There's a sort of almost a bounce possible there, isn't there? That's it. Yeah. And the front leg your front leg stays straight. At the front, so the back leg, that's it. The back leg bends, the front leg stays complete. That's better. You feel the difference?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the difference, Hannes, when you stay upright?
more stable.
Yeah, more stable.
And the lengthening is kept.
Yeah. How's that for you, Alison?
It's interesting. I can feel the ankle working at the back, getting a workout, and the front opening. Yeah.
And then there's a Katie Bowman one, which is very basic, which is simply to put your foot behind you like that and just roll it around gently. And if the front of the ankle is tight again, it can be quite painful. So you're just letting the toes be curled under at this point. And how much of the front of the toes can you get onto the mat? That's it. And you're letting the front of the ankle open up. So this is just a pure physical stretch, which we don't normally go in for, but here you go. Here's one for a change.
Adductor muscles
That
is
into
engaged.
I say make that into a more of a physical exercise, but into it as more of a resistance exercise by doing it like that. I think that's quite good, actually. So you're going on all fours, and then you're using your, that's right, the toes are uncurled, and you're using your psoas back and up to lengthen up the to lengthen the body up off the so the knees lift. You're lifting from the, in other words, you're lifting from here, not lifting from the legs. You're lifting from the core muscles, just like we did going up into dog. And the fronts of the toes are really getting a good workout. Is that possible? Yeah, that looks good. Yeah. How's that?
Yeah.
You okay, Kazuyuki? What's the connection there? You're putting a bit of body weight on it.
And are my legs going to be really straight?
You don't have to go right to straight. I mean, just, you know, just up and down a little bit. If you go too far, you go as far as is comfortable. If I go too far, my left foot's going to cramp.
And do I think the front of the foot and of the ankle and the toes long away?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And now do the reverse. Just tuck your toes under and roll backwards and forwards. So these are real foot openers. And you can go right the way back into a flat-footed squat if you can, and right the way forwards so that your toes are really bending. So you're just working the full span of the foot.
Good stretch.
It's a real stretch, yes.
But my feet feel lovely now.
Yeah.
Good, yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's an interesting one just made up there.
But I think there is something in the movement where I get afraid of falling, which is
Afraid
pushing
of
the
falling.
foot.
At which point?
So when I do this.
Yes. Oh, yes, yes, there's a limit to how far you can come back on that one, isn't there? Yes. Yeah, so yes, you do need to watch that, Hannes, obviously. So that one's not such a useful one for you because you can't do enough of the squat yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so don't worry about that one.
Okay.
But the other ones, I think, you know, that's useful for you.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then you could just, you know, do that one like we've done again, because that again is working feet and ankles. We've done that before. And we just coming up on one foot and then coming up on the other foot, but it's the back, it's the underneath foot that's powering the movement. Because the more we bring resistance into these rather than passive stretching, the better result we get. You
Yeah.
understand? Yeah.
And it's about thinking the sole of the foot long and lengthening.
That's right. So you're pushing up with the sole of the foot. So it's the up movement which is driving it. So you're driving that underneath foot up onto tiptoe. And then see
Yeah.
how far forwards also you can take the foot. Because on tiptoe, we don't take the toes as far as we do when the knee is bent. I love this movement. That's it. That's it. You've got it. That's it. So it's the underneath foot, because it's very easy to do it in a lazy way.
Yeah.
As a drop, but it's this powering up that actually does the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the feet. Again, how are your feet now?
Yes.
Nice. Okay, so let's just take that into some lunges then. Again, just thinking about the reverse iliac spine pull, posterior iliac spines coming round to the front iliac spines, and the backs of the knees up to the sacrum, and then being aware of your sitting bones as you go into a lunge and up again. So again, we're looking for stability and mobility in this one. You can go with one foot, you can go with the other foot, keeping that tone, this coming round, that coming up, and the sitting bones widen and the sitting bones come back together, and the sitting bones widen and the sitting bones come back together, and we can and then for those who've got the stability of it, try the twist over the front leg. Again, always with this coming round, coming round, coming round. That's it, Kazuki. Taking it into some martial art type stuff.
Yeah, more stable, and I can easily move.
Yes, yes. Keep the hips square. Don't let that happen. You're always keeping the hips forwards. That's it. Because if one hip comes forward and the other hip comes back, you get a different movement, which isn't stable. So that's it. So keeping the knees going forwards, keeping the hips going forwards, even though one is actually doing one thing and the other is doing the other.
And the lower body has more stability, so upper body is freer now.
Yes, yes, lovely. Yes. And we've also got the hip laterals working, haven't we? Just as the same as we had in that one. Again, the hip lateral is working too. So that as this all comes down, this comes up. The obliques are Really firing in. Yeah.
I feel very strong. My hip wants to push forward as I go forward.
Okay.
But this is working out. So it's just putting it into this movement.
Go on. So we've got that coming forwards, but it does take the tummy back, doesn't it?
Yes.
It does gather us back. It's bringing us forward and yet gathering back at the same time. Do it again.
And
Yeah. So is that better? That you don't let that happen?
yes.
Yes, but this stays back better.
Maybe I just do a smaller step.
Yes. Yeah, and there you kept it better. Keep thinking it as you come forwards. I have a feeling that there's a point where it somehow gets thrown away. Keep thinking it, keep thinking it, keep thinking it. That's better. Is that
Yeah. As I go too far, I lost the it's with the momentum falling forward, and in this moment I lose it.
Yes, but you had it for longer that time. And then the minute you started back again, you lost it. So
Yeah.
it's doing the same to come back again as well.
Yeah.
That's better. Yeah, that was different, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And now you move in that different way. Yeah. So that would be a great one for you to play with. And keeping it. That's it. That's it. Keeping it. Or renewing it, whichever is the
Yeah.
equivalent. Yeah, that's nice, Alison. How's
I
that?
really like this because as Hannes is finding out, I've been working with squats the last few weeks just for fun. And I've noticed that my pelvis tips forwards. And so I was really working with a strong pelvic pull, but that does reduce the breath. And I can be really strong with this backwards one. And I've still got breath all the way down to the pelvic floor,
Yes.
which I really like. And it's nice and stable.
Yeah, because then you've got the breath power up as well as the leg power, as well as the hamstring power, as well as the back power. Everything is now powering together. It's not one or the other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And your arm movement reminds me abdominal transversus abdominis going this way and the shoulder blade going this way.
Yes, absolutely. The shoulder blades do the same thing, don't they? They come forwards as well.
So all the back muscles widening.
Yes, absolutely. So that's where we're going next. Is we're just going to do our outwards, forwards, and down of the shoulders, and being aware that when that happens, the serratus anterior comes around as well, and the obliques. And so again, this is, you can really get both of those working together. And then of course bring the wrist back, and then we want to watch that we haven't pulled forwards, keeping the sternum coming up. And it occurs to me in this moment to link the sternum coming up from the sitting bones with the backs of the knees coming up to the sitting bones, because sternum can sort of pull up off the legs, whereas if we think of it, backs of knees to sitting bones to sternum, yeah, that for me has more freedom.
Yeah.
The torso is freer now.
Yes, yes.
Rotation is easier.
Ah. Yeah. Very nice. Let's be bodybuilders for a minute. You know the way bodybuilders do this pose. So it's just bringing a bit more welly to the bit more strength to the upper arm pull. So if we link the arms in front again, let's find this. So we're not letting this happen at all. Find the reverse iliac pull again, the hamstrings coming up, and then adding that. But when people do that, again, can you feel it can tend to pull your necks down? Does anyone else want to pull their necks down when they do that?
I do.
You do, yeah. So adding that iliac spine, because the way the bodybuilders then do it is they then try and lift the neck back.
Mm.
What does that do if we do that?
I get tightness in the back of my neck.
Yes, yes. So instead, think that top of the sternum up from the sitting bones, up from the back to the knees.
That's much better.
Yes, isn't it?
Mm.
And then we're getting a lovely little strong pull. I mean, I was noticing in the mirror this morning after my shower that my clavicles had gone back again, and I thought, I need a bit of, and this brings them up, brings them forwards again, brings them forwards and down. So it's a nice look for getting those. Whether you can see my clavicles in this light, and that they now come forwards. So, but yeah, so it's really opening out this whole zone. But to do it with this coming up right from the base helps. So that's just a bit of fun. But it's another, but it's bringing the strong stretch in, just to get everything moving. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so another stronger one for those who want it, just again to open out arm pulls. You take the elbow, one elbow outwards, forwards and down. The arm can still sort of be hanging a bit forwards for a lot of people, particularly for pupils where it can still be out there. And I get people sometimes to take hold of their own elbow and to keep the shoulder forward, to keep the elbow forwards, and then bring the wrist back strongly against it. And this is one heck of a stretch, which people either love or they hate. But I can feel that. I can actually see it opening up the trapezius, the scalene. You can actually, you can see if you can catch it in camera. But if I do it, you can actually see the neck muscles being stretched.
Please explain this again.
Yes. So take your elbow outwards, forwards and down. And is your hand now in front of your elbow? Yes, it is, isn't it? Your hand is in front of where the elbow is.
Ah.
Yeah. So we're using the hand, the other hand, to stop, because if people take their hand back, they very often take the elbow back as well. It's quite hard to keep the elbow forward and bring the hand back. So we're just giving it an extra help by holding it forwards to give a resistance to move the hand back. And it really gives the muscles resistance to lengthen against.
Yes.
So, And again, a teacher might do that for you. They might hold that and then with one hand and take your elbow, take your wrist back with the other hand. They might do both together, but it's something we don't tend to do for ourselves. So that's a little game of mine, after which my hands hang much straighter. So how's your hands now? Oh yeah, nice, Hannes. Straighter than usual? Yeah. Yeah, we've got some nice straight arms there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do some wrist work. Let's start with opening the palms, which is the other chapter 7 one, of course, using Alison's refined palm points, because Jando said they were the crease line and the points. But Hannes, you might not have seen this, but what Alison pointed out was that that's actually where the base of the thumb is.
Yeah.
Feel for it.
No, I got it.
Yeah, and this is actually where the base
Yeah.
of the third finger is, and the little finger again, there's the base there, and there's of course, the base of the palm is in the same place. So if you're thinking the thumb away from the palm, the base of the palm, the base of the thumb away from the base of the third finger, and the little finger away from the thumb, find your spatial awareness, and then let that palm, 1, 2, 3. I didn't count that accurately. Again, 1, 2, 3. So you're getting a lovely stretch of the palm itself. Just do it on the other hand, just map it, just finding where the base of the thumb actually is, the base of the third finger actually is, the base of the little finger actually is, and the base of the palm. And then just finding your pulse. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. How's that, Hannes?
Great.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of push-up against the wall. We won't do push-ups against the floor yet. I'll just demonstrate on this cupboard. Can you see me? Here, actually, if I can pull up my view.
Yeah.
Yep. This is my new trick. So, if you think about those palms opening, place them against the wall with the index fingers up and your feet as far away as is comfortable. The further away you go, the stronger the movement will be. So if you start close in and move further away as you're securing it. And then we're going to use those elbow pulls, the iliac spines, taking the posterior iliac spines round to the front iliac spines, and the backs of the knees to the sitting bones, and mapping where your sitting bones are. And then the elbows outwards, forwards and down, and the sternum up. And then bend your elbows to take you forwards. And then send your iliac spines, again, posterior iliac spines, round to the front to bring you up again. So you really come up again from the base. You're not just using welly in the arms to come up again, which is the standard press-up idea. You're coming up again by taking this back and up. That's it. And don't let the thumb and the forefinger come off the wall. As the elbows go out to the side, it might try and pull the inside of the hand off the wall, and see if you can leave it where it is. So stop and find your directions always. So that the iliac spines, the torso pulls are absolutely supporting the body. The wrists are working, but they're not having to power the movement. The arms are not powering the movement.
Yes.
Powered by the torso.
Yeah, the back moves me.
Yes, the back moves you. Yes. What are you aware of, Hannes?
Yeah, so it's a shift of the effort away from the arms,
Yeah.
the back.
Yeah, and into the back. I mean, this whole idea that press-ups have to be awfully hard work here. We want here to be leading the movement.
Yeah.
And the
Arms are work.
strength comes the lower body.
Yes, that's right. Alison, how is it for you?
It was very surprising that my arms were working so little.
Yes,
So, yeah.
isn't it? So here's another variation for those who again want to work the strength of the hands within this. which is you come forward, and then you, again, the iliac spines bring you back. As you come back, you let the heel of the hand lift off. So seeing if you can keep all the knuckles down, but at the heel of the hand, and then you're working that movement of the hand, and you're working a bit like we were working with the foot to drive the foot off the ground. So we're working it with the palm, and we're getting a bit of work. So see how you find this. Take it gently. Don't put more weight into your hands than you can handle. How's that?
When the heels and the foot of palms up, go up.
When? About halfway up, I would say. You don't want to do it right at the beginning of the movement back up. So as you go down towards the wall, they stay flat. And then as you come up, where's the point where you can engage them? There,
Oh.
yes.
Nice.
Yeah. So see if you can leave the knuckles. That's it. Yes. Yeah. So you're just working this, you're getting a bit of body weight like we were doing with the feet. So we're getting it going with the hands, but nothing too strenuous. But just getting a bit more, again, flexing of power into the hips, into the wrists.
And it's connecting into the back, along the arm.
Yeah. Yeah. So it should be open. We want to be working, but yet opening out the flexors, don't we?
Yeah.
Yes, it absolutely is, isn't it? It's connecting back right away. Because after all, the front of the arm connects not only into the bicep, but also into the lats. So
Yes, yes.
that's what we're picking up. Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
We're picking up right
Yes, yes.
into the lats. Yeah.
Deep back arm line is engaged
Yes.
from the latissimus dorsi.
Yes, the deep back arm line, but this one is the superficial front line. The superficial front line from the front of the front arm flexors, the arm flexors into the pecs, but it also goes into the lats. Yeah.
I see.
Yes, because I mean, obviously we want the deep back arm line. We always want the deep back arm line working, but this other one that is working as well. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, but isn't it? So if I engage my elbows, I get the deep back arm line in play. So, and it's stabilizing against the front, the superficial front line. So they're working together and
they're all working.
Yeah.
Everything's working in this. Yes.
it reminds me very much on, children sleeping beside you. You remember this? And they, in the middle of the night, they do stretches with legs, and they really push you very strong into the side, and it reminds me very much. It's the same with yawning, and in the morning, this stretch. It's
Oh yeah,
a similar move.
In the bed and kick both the adults out.
Yeah.
I can remember Amelia once just whamming me across the middle of the face in the night as well.
And if they feel some resistance, they push against it all the night.
Okay, I think we've done enough there today.
Yes.
Done rather a lot.
Thank you. That was fun. I loved the stretching out of the hand, by taking the heel of the hand off. That felt like really nice stretch through here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've tried doing this sort of stretch before, and if they've never peeled because they're just hard work. Whereas the minute you put resistance into it, body weight, you actually get something that's more meaningful. And it's really opening this out for me in a way that I find quite difficult usually. Yeah. Yes,
It
my fingers
opened up.
these fingers actually touch at the moment, and usually they're often like that.
Oh.
So, yeah, so it was the sign to me, can I actually get those two fingers together?
Mm.
Okay, that was fun. See you
Thank
in
you.
2 weeks' time.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye bye.